If you're looking for conservative conversations, commentary and content, then Family First has them all. And best of all, thanks to our thousands of supporters, there's no paywall or pesky advertisements. Check out our lineup. Our regular video blog from Bob McCoskrie called McBlog, with a regular dose of commentary around social and family issues. Family Matters, with guests from around the world and here in New Zealand, focusing on a range of issues and hosted by Simon O'Connor. Built on Truth, as Samuel Bilton takes a youth-focused dive into some of the contemporary cultural issues. The No Fluff Zone with Ala Pomalele offers her candid insights on key social and moral topics. Our very popular weekly political analysis show, Straight Talk, with a panel of guests who are unashamedly and unapologetically social conservatives. Political Playback, Thursdays live at 5 p.m, as we discuss the week in Parliament and New Zealand politics in general from a conservative viewpoint. And our newest feature, Counterculture, a young team of panellists discussing faith, culture and the issues shaping millennials and Gen Z. Finally, start each weekday informed. 7:30 a.m. live Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Daybreak with Bob McCoskrie as he gives an overview on key stories you need to be aware of. 7:30 a.m. live Tuesday and Thursday. A more in-depth discussion, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. You can access all these important discussions in the format that you prefer. Watch, read, listen. We will continue to promote strong families, marriages, religious freedom and the value of life based on the footprint of faith which has underpinned New Zealand for generations, and most importantly, be a voice for your values. Visit familyfirst.nz to see the full lineup and latest episodes. Go to familyfirst.nz and join the conversation.
Hello New Zealand, welcome to Political Playback. We've got so much to cover tonight that I'm not even going to introduce the other guy. How are you, Simon?
Yeah, he's good. I'll be brief. Hello.
Okay, well done. I did see some great comments come through and there was a particularly good one here that I just need to show you. Here we go from D-Dub. He says, weekly dose of sanity. So there we go. There's a big expectation on you, Simon.
No pressure, eh?
No pressure at all. All right. Well, we've got a few bits of breaking news. Just going to cross live to outside Parliament and want to see. Yeah, so this is outside Parliament as we speak. And what do you notice? There's a whole lot of emphasis on the number of sexes you have, your sexuality and your gender identity. Interestingly enough, there's actually an official delegation from, now did we figure out what country it was from? Was it Palau?
Turkey, Turkey.
Okay.
It's that red flag in the back right.
Okay, but there it is. You got 3 LGBT flags. I think the 2 out the left might be as well. Pride of place. Winston Peters, leader of New Zealand First, rightly got up in the House just a couple of hours ago and said, what's going on?
To offer any slight to anybody, the 2 flagpoles that are either side of parliamentary steps are the premium sites for flags and to welcome visitors.
Yeah, okay, so he's really struggling to explain it. Yeah, it's just incredible that that seems to be the priority of Parliament, but that shows you that it's New Zealand First that's got the bill, hasn't it, to change the to get rid of woke flags outside Parliament. So hope that one gets drawn.
Seems like a new perspective of Speaker Brownlee to say that those poles on the stairs of Parliament are the premium ones. The tradition, Bob, is where you see the pride flags at the moment. You have a New Zealand flag and any visiting delegations. The other thing for people to understand, there's a whole lot of flags which are flown, but there's an obsession with the pride flags and the associated ones. If you wanted to fly the unborn flag, for example, not a chance. So really the bias is evident. And I just say, as someone who's big into geopolitics, Pretty insulting to a Muslim nation to be welcomed to Parliament with those flags up. And I understand too, well, we have to stick to our values, but there's not much good in this.
Actually, I just realised I didn't quite get the start of that clip. I just want to show it again to you because Jerry Brownlee is really struggling to answer the question, and he really doesn't want to say LGBT. The flags are up because it is Pink Shirt Today tomorrow, which is all about pushing the LGBT flag at our kids. Used to be about anti-bullying, but it's basically a fundraiser for groups like Inside Out. I'll just play the start of it and just see how Jerry Brownlee is struggling.
Could I ask as to why there are so many flags flying outside this Parliament at the moment, and where in visiting delegations from other countries are given a secondary position? How did that arise, and what's the authority or mandate for that?
No, they're not given a secondary position. Either side of the parliamentary steps, which is the primary position. The other flags on the forecourt are the New Zealand flags, and then flags that represent a particular, I can't remember exactly, it's the
LGBT, Jerry. Anyway, yeah, he tries to get around it. Boy. It is insulting, isn't it? And it's a very good point you make, actually. Even more insulting to the visiting delegation.
Yeah, I think New Zealand, obviously we want to celebrate our values, even if these ones are a bit off-piste, but at the same time, you want to be sensitive to your guests. And again, I think Jerry's making it up. Those are not the flag poles at the back of primary position. The delegations will probably never see them, whereas those ones you see in the front, they are the pride of place. They are very public. So look, they're just making it up. It's just, once again, a deferral to the ever-growing alphabet dynamic.
Yeah, okay. Actually, Fourth Adam had a very good point. Rainbow is not a country. And I think, if I remember rightly, the women's suffragette, they had a special event and they wouldn't fly the flag for them. Is that correct? I think I heard that.
As we've been sitting here, I know there's been instances of other, if you will, equivalent groups asking, which are not countries, and they've been declined. And that's why I said at the start, it's remarkable. Anything to do with the pride flag or the transsexual flag, boom, it's there. There's not a hesitation. But look, that's part of the lanyard class of Wellington. Wherever you go, it's all pride flags and indoctrination.
Yeah. Okay, look, there was one other bit of news, and yesterday was Judith Collins' final day in Parliament. I think she was in, would it be 24 years? Would that be correct? Seems sort of around that time. And, I mean, she's close to home. She's the electorate just down the road. We did have a bit of involvement with her. But, look, I did just want to say that I think Judith Collins has been indicative of what's happened to the National Party in terms of social conservatism. And I just want to show you on our graph that we did for Value Your Vote for her voting record, you'll see there that she only got 29%. And it's fascinating to see how things sort of changed. So you'll see there that in 2005, she voted for marriage being one man, one woman. By 2013, she had voted for same-sex marriage. Up the top there, she voted, she was the big campaigner in 2004 for parental notification. And then when the radical abortion bill went through, she opposed parental notification. She voted for the anti-smacking law. And then this is the more recent vote. You'll note down the bottom there, the very bottom, she voted against euthanasia. But then when it came through in 2020 or 2019, when you guys voted on it, she voted for it. She also voted against conscientious objection and a calling off period. She voted for safe zones. She voted for the abortion legislation. She voted for conversion therapy ban, and she voted for confusing birth certificates. So, to me, it's an example of what's happened in the National Party in terms of turning its back on social conservatism. In the 2000s, I can remember working with Judith Collins on parental notification. I remember we went with her with Hillary's Law. Hillary was a woman from Taranaki whose daughter had been sneaked off for an abortion, and we worked with Judith on that. And look, turned around on same-sex marriage, turned around on parental notification, turned around on euthanasia. To me, Judith Collins typifies what's happened in the National Party. Oh, your micro.
There we go. Typical.
There we go. Well, no, that was the best thing I've ever heard you say in the last month.
It was deeply profound what I just said.
And he's forgotten it.
Look, I think it's very symbolic, unfortunately, of a lot of those in the National Party of basically changing their ethical positions for what they think is politically useful at the time. And it shows a lack of principles and a lack of values, unfortunately. I mean, you can always argue people are changing their minds on evidence, but my observations around the likes of Judith and others in the Parliament is they change because they think it's pragmatic for their leadership or their whatever at the time. So no, disappointing, but good that you actually have that value your vote. And of course, we'll be doing one for the elections this year.
Okay, the other thing I just want to run past you is just what happened in Australia and also the UK. There was a massive rejection of the existing traditional parties and a big swing to more conservative parties. And if you look at their policies, they are social conservatives in a lot of areas, but they are certainly nationalistic countries, what you would say. They're not anti-immigration, but they want controlled immigration. So obviously, in Australia, there was one nation. Pauline Hanson is suddenly the go-to person. And also what happened in the UK with the Reform, Nigel Farage's party. Now, you've actually done a Substack on this because, News Talk ZB, New Zealand Herald said that it's far-right parties. And it's just, it's derogatory, isn't it? You never hear of far-left parties winning. It's only far right. And you did the Substack on that. Do you just want to summarize why it's compulsory reading for everybody?
Yeah, the important pre-reading for any political payback. Look, that was one of the key points I was making. Look, you very rarely have mainstream media referring to any one or any group as far left, when actually, the Green Party, for example, their suite of taxation suggestions is classic far left. To Party Māori, with its revolutionary antics, very much far left. I think a new Green candidate on Q&A over Sunday, I mentioned her because she's basically talking about dismantling the democracy of New Zealand. These are far left concepts, but never framed that way. And I also mentioned Heather du Plessis-Allen. I think you might have touched on this either on Straight Talk or on one of your daybreaks, but she points out how the media frames things up. They don't like an issue, they'll quickly say it's controversial, but they don't do it of other topics. So really, I'm just exploring how language is manipulated and what we've got to push back on because, well, actually, we have to push back on it, and it's being pushed back on, as you're seeing in the UK and Australia.
Now, I do just want to get you to comment on what Christopher Luxon, our Prime Minister, said related to what happened overseas, because look, a lot of people jumped on the statement that he was blaming social media, and whereas somebody went down to the pub and just spoke to his mates, now they can get online with 10,000 others. So it was like this, it was all responsible for social media. People did jump on that, but he also said that we've got our immigration settings perfect and immigration is not an issue in New Zealand. This is what he said.
Did you follow Farah and the UK over the weekend at all or not?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Do you think, because we haven't seen it here to the same extent, do you think that's just a lot of grumpy people who wanted to send a message in a by-election or a council election, or the world is changing and that change may well come here?
Look, I think there are some big shifts. You've gone through a pandemic that people are pretty frustrated about. They're dealing with inflation, which they haven't seen for 30-something years, and they've also got technological disruption coming. And then you've got the rise of social media as well, in the sense of Trevor might go down to the pub and have a whinge to his mates at the pub, but now Trevor gets on board with his keyboard and finds 10,000 people that have a similar sort of view. So there are some fundamental shifts in global politics, and whether I talk to leaders in other countries, they're all wrestling with the same grumpy kind of population dynamics. I think in both those cases, there's also a very strong, illegal, unsupported immigration policies, and that has been very aggravating, understandably so, to people. Here in New Zealand, that has not been our experience. We have actually tightened our settings in the last 2 years. We've moved from 70% low skilled to 70% high skilled. We've gone from...
Okay, so he doesn't think that what we're seeing in Australia or the UK is relevant. Maybe social media means you hang around a few more people as keyboard warriors, but is he right? I think he's he's underestimating actually what's happening in the polls, which we're going to discuss next, by the way.
Look, the first point I might make, Bob, is this is a really good example, as you've done, of getting the entire clip. Because when I first saw this on X and the like, people was like, oh, he's accusing anyone who's supporting the likes of Pauline Hanson and Nigel Farage as grumpy men in pubs. And I was like, oh, that sounds a bit odd. Listening to the whole thing as we did there, you realise it actually sits in a wider context. People are grumpy, and that's why they vote in certain ways, and that's sort of political 101. But I think he is underestimating the immigration question. I think New Zealand's downstream of a lot of what we are seeing in Australia and in the UK, because it's not just simply illegal migrants. I mean, New Zealand doesn't really suffer from that. It's very difficult to get here. But the other is people who are not enculturating cultures which are coming in and are causing trouble, basically, whether it's violence on the street or intimidation or treating people in a way that doesn't accord with our Western values. And so this is going to be an issue here in New Zealand at some point, whether it's 2, 5 or 10 years, regardless of whether they change the pipeline. And look, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I don't believe that 70% split, I have to say, in our immigration settings. Anecdotally, I don't see the evidence for it.
So is he just pulling that out of the air, is he? Is it just sound good?
Look,
did you follow Farah in the UK over the weekend at all? Or
sorry
not?
about that. I didn't mean to press that button.
I mute myself. You're playing videos, but it's all falling to pieces. It's not even 20 past 5.
Our professionalism is just right up there, okay? Just remember that.
Look, I suspect he's not making it up. It'll be some report, but, where do you draw the line of what is a high skill? But as I say, anecdotally, we might be bringing some more people in with high skills, but I'm still seeing a lot of people in the country who I don't think fit that mould.
Okay, now, I think we covered all the things that we were going to cover before, so maybe we should actually get into the topics that we had on our list. So firstly, the poll of polls. Courier Market Research came out with a poll which suggested that Labour had dropped a little bit, but that purple line, the third one down that people watch, New Zealand First, had dropped a bit, the Greens had gone up a bit, and then there was a poll that has just come out, like literally today. It's interesting. Look at the headline. I mean, the headline itself, that's the obsession. What most thinking people will be looking at is, can National New Zealand First enact form a government? And for anybody who does maths, they're currently sitting on 43-50, and Labour, Greens, and Te Pāti Māori are on 47. So we're going to have a continued government. But they don't make that point. They're just obsessed with this 30% mark. Is it correct that the media should be, the whole narrative is around where National is? Or are we all having to adjust to the fact that New Zealand First is going to have possibly a lot more gravitas in the next coalition government, but it's going to be the same coalition government?
I think current trajectories, you're going to see New Zealand First being in the key seat. They're going to be making the call of where the government goes. I think more likely than not, Bob, as we've talked before, they will stick with the coalition government. But I would suggest it's not an absolutely done deal. I know Winston's posted about it. He talks about it. He's very strong on it, but there's always enough wiggle room. But I think they will prefer to work with the current coalition. It actually has worked well. Look, media are welcome to report any way they want. But again, this is one of the reasons Political Playback and the other shows that we have on Family First exist, is that we're able to dig into this a bit more to go, right, they're focusing obsessively on National, but actually it's the coalition. And as you've just done, you pull the numbers together. The other thing I'd quickly say, I'd be a bit disappointed if I were Labour that they're not getting the headline. Labour at 36%, which I find it remarkable myself. Maybe I'm biased that they could be at that level, having basically got no policies and said nothing. But that's what it is.
Actually, we will come back to that. I mean, they had a bit of a drop. What are they on? 31. So actually, I meant to show this, the poll of polls. So this is the average of all the polls that you're seeing come out. We've had 2 this week. We've got One News. We've got, there's polls everywhere. And this is a average that they're doing. And as you can see, I mean, it is concerning that blue line of National. It has just sort of been dropping, but it's it's countered by the rise in the black line, which is New Zealand first. And look, the green line, the Greens, and the brown line, Te Pāti Māori, are all dropping. That is just a gradual drop of the Greens, which is, that's fascinating to watch. So, look, is it still anyone's game, or do you think the coalition government's probably thinking, actually, the polls really aren't shifting much? It still seems to be in our favour.
I think they'll still be nervous. I know they're nervous. It's still too close. A couple of mistakes or some blindly brilliant policy moves on either side, left or right, could switch things. Unexpected resignations. There's still months to go. A better signal to people: I don't have any particular intelligence on unexpected resignations. You'll hear it here first on Political Playback if I did. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of water to still go under the bridge here. But look, if I were a betting man, I would say it is good for the coalition government, because the other factor to bear in mind is there's a whole lot of smaller political parties who won't reach 5%, and all their vote then gets divvied up. And so, granted, half goes to the likes of Labour and the Greens, if on the current poll, but the other half goes to the coalition, who are so close, if not already over that 50%. So, and of course, Te Pāti Māori, I mean, there's a real chance, Bob, that they just won't be here at all. I suspect they will be. I think they'll win at least one seat, if not two. But boy, that would be an earthquake if they were completely wiped out.
Yeah, I just did my maths, and there's 3% undecided on that particular poll showing there. So, there still is wiggle room, and watch the space. All right, let's keep going. Good decision today from the government. And I think it's great contrast to what we've seen as the whole push around euthanasia. But the Minister of Health, Simeon Brown, came out with an announcement on finally some strong palliative care for children. There's only been one centre, Starship, and one specialist doctor. This was his announcement today.
I didn't realise that New Zealand didn't have a nationally consistent specialist palliative care service. And that is something that I've been determined to change. Because behind that gap are parents living with the knowledge that their child's life will be short. Parents who are doing everything they can to make that time as comfortable, as full and as meaningful as possible. And as a father of 4 young children, I can only begin to imagine what that must feel like. And whilst I still can't fully understand it, I do understand this. Parents shouldn't have to face it without the right support around them, and where you live should never determine the care your child receives. Each year, around 300 children in New Zealand die from life-threatening or life-limiting conditions, and up to 3,000 may need specialist palliative care support. These numbers matter, but what matters more is what sits behind them: children, families, and the time they have together. And that is what today's announcement is so important. Today, I'm incredibly pleased to announce that Budget 26 will invest $15.5 million to establish a nationally consistent specialist paediatric palliative care service with dedicated teams in both the North and South Islands. Yeah,
I mean, possibly he should be pointing the finger at the previous Labour government and saying for 6 years they didn't give any funding to this. Just before you comment on this, he actually got quite emotional during the presentation, and it was because families who had been affected by this were present as well.
This budget has required careful choices, but supporting families through some of the most challenging times they will ever face is exactly why those choices matter, because it allows us to invest in care that is not just effective but compassionate and meaningful. I want to thank my cabinet colleagues, and in particular.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great decision, great day, isn't it? It's a type of thing where I don't think you'll find any taxpayer saying or begrudging that decision.
No, look, I think a great decision. I mean, kudos to Simeon. I mean, he got landed this very early on as the Minister of Health, actually, because I think either we might have had a specialist that was leaving the country. There was something that brought this onto the radar. And look, kudos to him. He's found the money. He's managed to convince his cabinet colleagues. And I think it's not because they would have not wanted to support it, but, the nature of politics is making tough choices. But great decision. Kudos to Simeon. As he notes himself, he's a father of 4. Your heart goes out to anyone in palliative care, but particularly in the pediatric space. In fact, before I came on, Bob, Tanya Unkovic messaged me to remind me that actually literally a year ago today, she and I had a podcast out. Literally this day in 2025, we had a podcast around palliative care because both her and I respectively sponsored a bill, which never got drawn, unfortunately, around better palliative care with the pediatric space as part of it. So I have to say, with the small little part that I've played, a larger part that I know Tanya has and others, it's just a wonderful win. It is just, it's just wonderful.
All right, social media ban, it's still in the news, and there was the review that was done, which was called for by ACT. They had a select committee report. It went back to Parliament. They had a discussion on it in a special discussion in Parliament yesterday. Look, I do just want to cover a little bits because there was a couple of little quirky bits, but a couple of interesting statements just on the social media ban from the discussion yesterday. So firstly, Carl Bates, who was national, and he was the chair of the select committee.
Is that considerable focus has been on the banning of social media for under 16-year-olds. The committee has recommended by majority that this work be progressed.
That's right.
This is and must be seen, however, as one component of a wider set of measures. It is not in itself a complete response to the breadth of challenges our young people face online.
Yeah, so I mean, there's an acknowledgement that it's not going to solve everything. Erica Stanford, Minister of Education, she shared a very powerful story of someone who was on TikTok and got into cutting and said, you know, we're worried about people going to darker places. Isn't that already dark enough? But she did a very nice analogy, I thought.
When cars got faster, we added seatbelts. When cars got faster, we added airbags and ABS, and you can't use a phone. And we mandated that you had to have a seatbelt. We now have the most powerful device in the world imaginable in the hands of our children, and there are very few regulations to keep them safe. And frankly, parents, not only in New Zealand, but around the world, are feeling completely helpless. And I've heard it, and you will all hear it from the social media giants, but we have parental controls, they say. But there are so many of these platforms, and they are so difficult to navigate with us, whatever we are, X, Y, Z, the old people like me, who didn't grow up with this. It is a completely new world to us, and trying to navigate all of these controls across all of these platforms, half of them we never even heard of. It is.
Yeah, so, I mean, good comments from her as well. There was a guy, Mike Butterick, who, to be honest, I haven't heard of, but he's a national MP. And he made a very good point as well.
So, you know, I think there's a lot of assumptions that parents know. I would hold the view that a lot of parents don't know. They've never grown up with the technology. They've never had the ability to use the technology. And I think it's just evolving at such a pace, an unprecedented pace, that, you know, the minute you get familiar with how to do something, it's like next minute it changes, gets an upgrade, and you're sort of lost again. And I find myself looking around for the youngest person in the room saying, can you please help me with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents will be able to relate to that. Now, obviously, on the counter side, the ACT Party, they're concerned, and I'm keen for you to comment on this, Simon, just about the point she makes around whether age verification can be effective, or will that interfere with privacy?
And there were young kids, those who were making facial expressions to bypass restriction and staying online. In the UK, we have seen reports of young boys drawing moustache on their face to bypass restriction. So this age verification system is not effective. So what will that result into? That will result into platforms asking for people uploading their IDs digitally. And this is not just young people. This will be all New Zealanders. So, Mr. Speaker, we are concerned about people's privacies. We are concerned about people's freedoms. So we do not want people's privacy or freedoms to be compromised.
Now, I know you've done an interview with sort of one of the world experts on age verification. Is she right that you can't separate the two?
You definitely can separate the two. She's wrong by and large. It's a classic political situation, and it applies to some of the other speakers too. They just take a little tidbit of information and really run with it. So, of course, very basic age verification systems, I'm just imaging in my mind, drawing a moustache to get around it. But the systems are much more sophisticated now, and they are not digital ID. I think it's something really important for people to understand. You are not going to be required to upload your driver's license or your passport and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, literally, one of the examples is they can look at your hand. You can also do it all on your phone, where you literally, yes, you on your phone will take a photo of, let's say, your driver's license, but that has not been uploaded onto the internet. Long and short, the app, granted it's a third-party app, looks at it and says, yep, Simon is over 16. And all that's sent from your phone is a packet of data to Meta or Google or YouTube that says this person is over 16. So long and short, it's not digital ID. They've got that wrong. I listened to all the speeches at the end of the day, a little bit repetitive in places, but great that they had the debate, Bob. I am concerned that there isn't the bill yet. Like, it's nice to talk around the options. We've had months now. And look, you know it better than I do. In fact, I might throw it back to you. You were one of the first voices into this space, weren't you? Family First. Years ago, well before it became sexy, was talking about this.
Well, it was more around screen time in general, and the fact we looked at the Ministry of Education guidelines and the Health Ministry of Health, and they all gave guidelines as to how many hours kids should be on screens. So it was more around the effect of screens, but of course that was leading into the fact that kids are using screens in schools. They're also using screens outside of schools, and now, of course, we got into the gaming and to the social media. So it's been a perfect storm, and we haven't endorsed the health requirements around screen time, and so you've got kids going to bed. You know, I was talking to a primary school teacher just last week who said, look, they know, 9-10-year-olds who are literally under the covers of their bed on their devices till 3 a.m, getting up at 6, turning up at school with their brains wide, their eyes wide. And look, you'd sort of say, parents, you need to step up to this, but it's insidious, and it's easy for kids to sneak around. It's just, part of the challenge for parents. And that's where I'd love to see more guidance for parents in terms of, for example, when my kids were younger, I was able to turn the modem off from a certain time to a certain time. So it affected even me. Even I couldn't use it after a certain time. But that was part of the sacrifice. But, once again, are we making that known to parents?
I think, look, part of it is empowering parents to understand, but I think Mike Butterick's, he's actually the MP for the Waipareira. So think of the area just sort of north of Wellington. Lovely vineyards. Anyway, that's an aside. He's got a good point that in some ways it doesn't matter what you teach parents, that they're not necessarily going to understand the technology and what's available. I mean, fundamentally, there is a role for government here around some regulation. There's certainly, young people are saying very clearly in that report, they want more support and help. Yes, education for parents, but a lot of responsibilities can be put onto the tech platforms, just as, to use Erica's example, was of the car industry. But I will flag what for me was one very big red flag in this report, and the MPs talked to it.
Yeah.
They are wanting internet commissioners, they're wanting control over the algorithms. They talk about it as we want the transparency around the algorithms which these tech companies use. And let's be clear, these algorithms which drive content are problematic. But I'll be blunt with you, Bob, I don't want the government anywhere near those algorithms. I don't trust any government to have that transparency and ultimately control to then themselves manipulate what we do see and don't see. So I just want to keep government well away from that. And it's my hope that whatever this current government, if they get around to it, is a very light touch in terms of regulation.
Okay, just before we quickly check in on Chloe's unbelievably fantastic contribution to this debate, and I say that with my tongue firmly in my cheek, 3 News actually had a very good little bit of coverage on this because they basically had Meta saying that Meta had gone through all this stuff and they were going to keep kids off the objectionable stuff, and it was going to be G-rated or PG-rated, and they'd got parents to look through 3 million examples or something, and so they judged it. And then 3 News did this little experiment themselves.
Now, the content experience they have across the different surfaces in the app will be consistent with what people would experience in a 13-plus movie setting.
We're talking less graphic violence, no more risky stunts, and a crackdown on drug and alcohol-related content. Meta uses artificial intelligence to scan its platforms for inappropriate videos and users.
We also asked a range of parents to rate over 3 million pieces of content on Instagram to try to make sure that we've been getting it right, feed that back into the technologies, and now we're confident that we can provide a consistent age-appropriate experience for young Kiwis on Instagram.
Okay, so let me just show you. I'm just going to go forward and just show you the test that they did, which I thought was quite good.
To see how tight these restrictions are. Very quickly, Mr. Beast has popped up, and when I click on his account, you can see a lot of content where he's attempting pretty high-risk stunts. Let's try searching someone like far-right influencer Sneeko. His extremist views have seen him banned from Australia, and yes, he's blocked. However, I can view other accounts reposting his content. If I search a word like beer, that content is blocked, but if I search a phrase such as crate day, I can still see an abundance of alcohol-related videos.
I think that the history...
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, she pretended to be a 14-year-old and see if she could get around the safeguards that Meta were promising would solve the problem. So once again, I mean, this is what we've argued, isn't it, Simon, that it's putting the onus back on the big tech. Big tech needs to put in the requirements. I mean, they're being sloppy because they know they can get away with it at the moment, and they want clients for life. They want people addicted to that algorithm.
Look, they do. That's where the pressure should be put. Look, a good analogy is content, HBO content, or any films. You try putting those up on social media, clips of films, clips of TV shows, the big ones, that is. Sport games, actually, I should use that of your good self. You imagine putting a clip of Arsenal playing up. These are removed. Liverpool, sorry, I've just insulted you now.
Wash your mouth out.
So, you try to put a clip of a Liverpool game up. Boy, that is brought down at great speed. And so the long and the short, the technology is there already. It's just not been used. And so, that's the pressure point. Along with, as you've heard me say before, the age verification, I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, look, let me just, a couple of comments. Sian says, I'd like to share the fact that you can fully 100% control what internet traffic flows in and out of your house. And I think Sian's right. The problem is that your kids are only in the house when they're sleeping, and when they're being fed, they're at school for 8 hours a day. They're going out. They've got sports practices. They're at social groups. They're at youth group. So there's a lot of time. But I get the point that Sian's making. Murray says, if the entire country had internet connection like we have here, the children would get sick of it. Where do you live, Murray? You must be in the outback or something. There's no fibre there or something. And Pugs for Life says, look, big tech knew all this would happen. Lisa says, parents can get apps that have controls for times internet is available. Yep, that's what I used. And blocking websites, but it costs. Well, it's worth the cost in some ways. Education is a very important part of this for parents and children. Look, it was not knowing, and the fact that people can get around VPNs. And the fact of the matter is that kids don't have to use your Wi-Fi that's been blocked. They can just go on to the phone Wi-Fi or whatever it is. I'm technically wrong there, but you know what I'm getting at. So, and then Fourth Adam says...
Sorry. No,
Fourth Adam says...
Fourth Adam in.
Yeah, he just says no phones. But unfortunately, we live in the 2020s. And actually, Fourth Adam should catch up with Murray. Murray says, what's fibre? Anyway, we've got a whole lot of boomers watching. Anyway, sorry.
I think we do what we can to control. But look, one small example from my family. I woke up one morning because I had all the controls around when the internet was available and so on. And was like, well, there's a new network, a really powerful new network in my house. And long and short, my youngest stepson had created a new network. Which at that point I had not known about. And at one level I was like, oh, quite annoyed. But at another level I was like, well played. I like the initiative.
Yeah.
But it's like an addiction, isn't it? People will find a way, but that is not an excuse not to do nothing. Well, that's an awkward sentence.
So this is the statement that you hear often. Wendy says they're using censorship to introduce digital ID. No one wants that. And I think, no, we don't want it either, but you can still protect kids without censorship and digital ID, can't we?
We can. I'm very clear that the likes of age verification or protecting children online is not digital ID any more than when the supermarket guy comes up and looks at you when you bought your bottle of Sauvignon and age verifies you there, or you hand over your passport and all the other things that we are doing already, how you verify yourself at banks and so forth. So look, digital ID is definitely a step too far. It's something I am very concerned about, but it is not a reason to stop protecting children.
If you're worried about digital ID, or if you think that you've managed to avoid it, just travel overseas, go through immigration. It's all digital and everything. In fact, I think in Australia you almost don't need to show. I remember going through one airport and it's just so digitized. It's quite incredible. Look, I know you're all wanting to know what was the fantastic input that Chloe had to this debate on social media, and somehow she managed to pull out of the air a debate around the war on drugs.
In drug harm regulation and the kind of evidence that has emerged over the past 40 to 50 years of the failure of the war on drugs, there's an understanding that there's kind of a spectrum of approaches that you can take to drug harm minimisation, or arguably to drug harm minimisation. At one end of the extreme, there's a complete criminal prohibition, and at the other end of the extreme, there is a complete legal free market. Live and let live, c'est la vie. People.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I think Mike might have been listening to that because he said you can get dumb phones. I'm not sure if he's referring to that last speech or whether he's referring. Actually, a lot of people are going back to dumb phones, and in fact, a lot of young people are saying they would just want a dumb phone because it's just simpler for their life, and then they don't get all the alerts and all that type of stuff. So, I think that's
maybe I should get one, and then you can't message me work business. That's a good
idea. I was going to be smart and say you can't get dumber, Simon, but I won't. I won't even tempt myself to say that. Look, let's keep going. And this is an interesting question to move on to. The Woman and Man Bill. What is a woman? The word is that it's Private Members Bill Day next Wednesday, which means that there will be the first reading of the definition of woman and man. Now, just some seen you advertised your Substack. I'm going to advertise my McBlog. And I did an interview with Winston Peters this morning about it, asked him what will it achieve, what does he say to the critics of it. I also asked him if he's going to go with Labor. Fascinating response, you need to watch that. But anyway, so the first, and I did say to him, look, if the MPs don't vote for it to first reading, what does that say about them? And he couldn't give me any guarantees that ACT and National are going to support the bill. Yeah, I don't know. What do you reckon, Simon? I reckon this is going to be a bill where only New Zealand First votes for it, because I just think the Parliament is that woke and scared of putting a line in the sand on this. And especially with, especially with this right outside the door, the pressure's really going to be on. Gender confusion and sexuality extreme.
Yeah, look, I don't have any particular inside knowledge on this. I want to really underline that. I haven't been talking to former colleagues around this, but I would
you mean on colleagues? You don't mean on what is a man and what is a woman, eh?
That's
you mean
right.
On
no,
the oh, yeah, thank you.
But no, my next thought is I expect National to block vote against this. I think ACT will do the same. They'll just link into
as a party.
That's my speculative guess. That's why I said that I haven't got any particular intel. I haven't actually been talking to them around how they're voting. So I just want to make that really clear. But my gut tells me they'll have a conversation in caucus going, this is a distraction. It's not going to achieve anything. They'll find some vague pseudo reason to say it's not going to be of any value, and they'll just block vote against it because, hey, we've got to focus on the bigger issues. Unfortunately for them, and if that's what National and ACT and other parties do, then we at Family First and our rather large database of people will know that all of those MPs, whether in their heart or otherwise, have no idea of biological reality. And I saw something today. It's from a guy called Peter Boghossian. He's a philosopher. I actually just done a podcast with him, and in fact, he was interviewing me. He says, no one, when we're discussing the elements of truth, questions gravity or the quantum mechanics, but somehow biology now is up for question. I mean, he just said it's an absurdity, and yet we may well be confronted with it. But I'm looking forward to the vote, Bob, because this is going to be great fodder for Family First and the value your vote.
Yeah. Yep. Can you just explain to me, I mean, this fascinates me. You're sitting in caucus and your party tells you you've got to vote a certain way for a party, and yet deep down you know that this is just biologically correct. There's going to be some MPs, hopefully in ACT and in National, who are thinking, this is just crazy. So what are they doing? Is it just the requirement of being in a caucus that they've got to park their deep-held conviction on the issue?
Well, strictly no. Easy for me to say sitting here now. I suspect had this confronted me and we were told or been whipped to vote against it, I probably would have crossed the floor. In fact, I would have crossed the floor. I mean, it's easy for me to speculate, but it really comes down to the individual MPs. There may be some who go, I'm sorry, this just crosses such a fundamental principle that you can't stop me voting the way that I want to vote. There'll be others who deeply uncomfortable with it, but will be doing the calculation. Well, the bill's probably going to be defeated anyway. Why would I burn any political capital? If the party leader is telling you, look, we are not voting for this, it's a relatively brave MP who then goes against the leader, because the repercussions aren't simply around the bill. So all of that swirls around. But look, people can take it as speculation for someone who's a former MP, but this was one of the red lines for me, in the same way it would have been if we were told we had to vote for abortion or for euthanasia or to remove freedom of speech. Like, no, I'm sorry, you can whip me as much as you want. I'm crossing the floor. But I will say this, I suspect there will be some voices in the respective caucuses saying, look, this needs to remain a conscience vote. But we'll see. We'll find out next Wednesday.
I mean, it is sort of funny. I mean, you do have New Zealand First putting up some interesting bills. I mean, they want English to be an official language. They want to stop woke flags being put outside Parliament. They want man and woman to be defined, which would also affect the ability of these flags to be shown outside Parliament. I mean, if anything, New Zealand First bills are actually being proved why we need them when you see this type of thing. But look, it is going to be a first reading next Wednesday, so we'll blast out some information and we'll give you the ability to contact your local MPs and tell them they better recognise biology because it's going to affect your vote. As I say, Simon, if someone, it's the same with the abortion issue. If someone who wants to be in political leadership cannot figure out that a child in the womb is still a child, and if they cannot figure out that a woman cannot have a penis, I'm not going to vote for them in a month of Sundays. I don't care how good they are at economy or education or any other issue. To me, they're just in la-la land, and I'm not going to vote for them. So it's going to be a fascinating vote, very revealing. And I think MPs are going to know that, isn't it? I mean, maybe I can just ask you that question because we may not talk about this again before the first reading. What's the message that you would recommend people to send to their local MP on this bill?
I think it really just starts with a simple appeal to say this is something they're following, asking the MP to vote for the bill. I think the theme is don't be a liar. No one except the truly zealous in the trans space really believes men can become women and women can become men. It is a giant lie. And that's why this is a major issue. It's a bit of what you were saying earlier. If an MP is prepared to lie in their voting around the reality of biological sex, what else are they lying to you about? And I suppose that would be the line, said gently. I don't say it with aggression, but to say to them, if you cannot recognize biological reality, if you are prepared to lie about it, then how can I trust you on anything else? And I think that's the fundamental point.
And just another quick question while we're talking about this. Best to just contact your local MP or list MPs that are in your area. I think I've heard you say that when MPs get email that they can see is addressed to every MP in the House, that's an immediate delete. Is that correct?
That's how I operated. People who send emails to all and every MP is not effective. An email that comes in that everyone's BCC'd in is not effective. What is hello, Simon, I'm Katrina, I live in your electorate, or I am one of your voters. Often you can even just give the suburb to give some credibility to what you're saying. Hi, I live in Mission Bay. Oh, okay. You take absolute notice of that. Yeah. You don't take notice of mass emails. And the other thing too, no long ranty emails. MPs have a very short attention span, not because they're stupid, but because they've got a lot on. So pages and pages, it's just like, nah, not dealing with this. Short, polite, and short and to the point and polite.
Okay. Jennifer likes your message. Good one, Simon. Be a lover of truth. Very important. All right, let's keep going. We're fast running out of time as usual. Interesting you mentioned about lying, because there was a suggestion that maybe Chris Hipkins had been misrepresenting. So there's this blogger account. I've turned the sound down on this, but you can sort of see it's just objectionable stuff. It just attacks Christopher Luxon, uses the F word, the C word, shows bestiality. There's a clip coming up where it actually mocks Easter and Christopher Luxon being an egg. And what they actually, this is the one. So this is their Easter message, and basically it's Christopher Luxon dropping off a building. And this isn't actually the worst of the stuff. And what they found was that it was actually being possibly operated from either by an ex-Labor staffer, or they were using imagery that had been used by the official Labor Party account. And that's why I've called it ToasterGate, because somebody matched up the toaster that was used on an official Labor Party social media post 2 years ago with a post that had just come out using the same toaster in the same room, which is just around the corner from Hipkins' office, or from the Labor Party office. I mean, it's actually quite funny. But look, as you'll see there, stuff even say that, despite previously denying any links to a troll account that ruthlessly takes the mickey out of Luxon, Labor leader Chris Hipkins has now admitted, it is a former staffer. There's a bit of a trust issue going on with Chris Hipkins, isn't there?
Yeah, his stories on a number of things shift. Look, the political bubble is not that big. And the bubble when it comes to your staff and even former staffers is even smaller. So it really defies belief that he didn't know. But even if you want to say, look, it's some way that he had no idea that this person was doing the job, you have to wonder, how is it that Labor in general is not actually making comments to this person to say, hey, the tone and style of what you're doing is pretty disgusting, actually, and pretty low. And you would expect them to definitely know that it's happening. I mean, there's no way that the Labor Party, and I would say the leader's office of Labor, and probably Hipkins himself, don't know about this account, don't know about his work, because they'll be sharing it. A whole lot of Laborites will be loving it. This is the stuff that it's just, it's beyond belief, but goes back, even the accusations to him a few weeks back or months now, again, the shifting stories.
Well, that's what they actually found, was that some Labor MPs had actually been sharing the posts. So, they were sort of following. I mean, it would be like if one of a Family First staff member was posting stuff in their private capacity. There still is a responsibility, and when the spotlight is on politicians even more, which is just part of the territory, isn't it? You are sort of overcautious, hey?
I think so. I mean, it's just, again, it's another untidy example where what Chris Hipkins is saying seems to be always changing. And for me personally, the level of ignorance that he seems to have on a whole number of things. Oh, I didn't know about this. So, well, if you don't know about that, how are you expected to know about how you meant to run the country? And I think, to be blunt, we already know the answer to that question, because he ran the country for a while and he got kicked out.
Yeah. Okay, fast running out of time. This is fast as sour. I just want to cover this one. Waipareira Trust, they're a charity. They've been helping with a mayoral campaign. They also helped with the Pāti Māori political campaign. I remember during the anti-smacking debate that I made a comment to a listener interview, and I said, look, the anti-smacking law, that was obviously a big issue for us. And I got a warning letter from the Charities Board saying, stop politically lobbying. And now that was just speaking up on a public debate that other charities like Bernardo's and there was a number of other charities, Children's Commissioner, were speaking up, but they were on the other side of the debate. Here's the Waipareira Trust, not only being government funded, but they're putting money into political campaigns, Pāti Māori and a mayoral campaign, and Charities Board are faffing around. There seems to be a slightly different playing field here, Mr. O'Connor.
There is. Oh, look, the double standard is galling. Look, you can start, of course, with what happens to Family First. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. And I don't say it because now I'm working with you. I mean, it was a ridiculous decision back then. It remains so. The fact that Family First takes positions on issues, yeah, so what? So does Amnesty International and Greenpeace and Bernardo's and a whole lot of other groups. Waipareira does some actually good work, particularly in the health space. I don't want to slam everything they do, but as a charity, they're totally crooked. Tamahiri runs it as his own personal fiefdom. Just look through the accounts of just how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands he pays himself and his family.
Well, it's a bonus. Money. I haven't had a bonus for 20 years, and I don't think I'm going to give you one either.
Well, his bonus of $300 and something thousand exactly matched the money which he put into his own mayoral campaign.
Yeah, funny that.
So he's funded his own mayoral campaign from the charity. The charity funds Te Pāti Māori. The charity was involved with the Mararewa Marae, which was basically stealing census data and COVID data to facilitate the election of the Te Pāti Māori candidate, who's now resigned. So, I mean, look, it is just totally crooked. But the Charities Commission and the High Court have both shown themselves to be totally inept because they've not ruled against him. But you, unfortunately, Bob, were an easy target, and that's the reality we live with. But I better underline this quickly. I know we're running out of time. My critique of Waipareira is not based, if you will, as a response to what happened to you. It's just demonstrably corrupt. It should be completely closed down, including for the very simple fact of the millions and millions of dollars that government agencies give the charity. So much of it is going into the personal pockets of John Tamahiri.
Okay, well, money also going in the wrong direction, and this is our last topic, is just there's a new political party, and it's basically an anti-Semitic party. John Minto, of course, Palestine free from the river to the sea, and that's part of their slogan. But what is particularly galling, because it'll just grab votes from the left, from the radical left. So, look, it'll be no loss to, it'll be the left side of politics that'll lose through having this. But what was particularly galling is that in the taxpayer funding that is given to political parties, Free Palestine is there on the list. In fact, they're getting the same allocation as a Conservative party that has been around for, 15 years or something. Yeah, unbelievable. How can a party like that even register?
Well, they've got to reach 500 people, as in they've got to register 500 members. So at the moment, the party exists but hasn't reached the threshold. I suspect they will. They're a despicable crowd of pro-Islamist, anti-Jew, Jew-hating people. It is absolutely disgusting. And this is a perfect example of how our democratic systems are misused by people who will destroy it. John Minto and his crowd run around crying about fascism and genocides. They are the fascists. They are the modern-day Nazis. And I'm aware of Goodwin's law, but I use that quite directly. They are the modern-day Nazis who are literally and daily calling for the eradication of the Jewish people. They are absolutely despicable. And my encouragement to any viewers and listeners who know of anybody in their circle of friends who would even consider signing up to something as disgusting as this, that they need to speak up and challenge those people and tell them step away, because it is they're just appalling. As I say, Minto and his mates are the fascists themselves, but they just can't see it.
Okay, that's a strong way to finish, and well said. Well done. Right, we are out of time, so you have a great night, Simon. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Been great getting all your feedback. Sorry you didn't get we didn't get time to get to all the comments, but we did see them. And we will be back same time next Thursday. Until then, have a great night.